I've really been drawn to do a very simple movement of drawing the elbows in and taking the hands nice and wide apart as a way to open the upper chest. And then go to standing poses to work on hip opening. So let's begin by coming to a nice wide stance. In your wide stance, with your feet parallel to begin with, as if your forearms and palms are lifting up some heavier object. Keep that action before just reaching your hands out to the side. And you feel like one shoulder feels a lot more freedom than the other here. It's just more information for you to work with in your yoga practice. Come back to the center. We'll do this 2 more times here. Press your elbows toward your ribs. Reach your hands out and just notice a nice opening in the upper chest area. Hug your elbows into you. Take your hands back as if you're pressing that imaginary object up and reaching your thumbs down. Keep the elbows pressing in toward the ribs as you go wide. All right. Now, with your right toes turning out, line up your right heel to the back arch and bend your knee, with the elbows hugging in again, with your feet pulling in toward each other. Today, pelvic and shoulder work just allows for a little bit more engagement right between the pelvis and the shoulders. So, as we work the shoulders and strengthen the legs, just reach your hands out. Good. Now you've got a nice openness to the upper chest. Reach your hands out. Try to keep the shoulder blades hugging in. Make a fist with your hands. Draw your fists in toward your wrists so you get a nice stretch to the back side of the forearm there. Now reach your hands out again. Turn your palms down. Look out over your extended right hand. Keep pulling in from the right foot to the back arch. Keep that strength. And slowly release your hands. Parallel your feet again. Pause with the hands right at your hips. Draw your left toes out, and maybe you have gained enough strength that you can go wider while still getting that hugging the midline feeling in the stance. Bend your knee. Keep hugging the midline. Have the elbows hug the midline with the palms facing up. And as you draw your hands away from each other, it opens the upper chest really nicely. Keep that nice opening of the upper chest as you extend your hands out. Shoulder blades are still drawing in nicely toward each other. Sometimes I feel like when I'm doing so much shoulder work, I totally lose the abdominal area. To see while you have your shoulder blades hugging in, can you still get a nice engagement of the abdominal area? Make a fist with your hands. Draw your fists in toward your ears, just cocking the wrists slightly to do so before extending out again. Keep the legs really strong. Turn your palms down. Take your gaze out over your extended arm and come to the fullness of your Virabhadrasana number 2. Keep your back leg strong and maybe drop just a little bit deeper into the form of the pose. Inhale, straighten the leg and release your hands. Parallel your feet again with your hands to your low back. Interlace your fingers now at your low back and have the palms press in toward each other so that the wrist creases are pretty tightly drawing toward each other. With your elbows bent, draw your heart forward but bend your knees. So we're not doing a forward fold here as much as we're just kind of checking in with the shoulders as the elbows hug in toward each other. The feet are hugging in toward each other. You're drawing your heart a little bit closer to the earth as you take your weight over toward your right leg and you straighten your left. You're still hugging the feet in toward each other before coming to the opposite side. Hug the right leg in toward the left as you bend your left knee. And again, with the palms pressing in, the elbows hugging the midline, you're coming to the right side. It's not a forward fold as much as it's just a strong engagement of the legs, hugging in as you move side to side and come back to the center position before lifting yourself out of the pose and release your hands. Come to all fours position. In all fours position, tuck your toes under. Walk your hands back toward your knees. Now, your hands can come off the earth if you wish, but for some of us, that doesn't work so well. So, if you'd like to, just draw your weight to your heels as you hug your heels in toward each other to get this nice lift. Again, keep your hands at the mat if this is not working for your knees. Others of us can interlace our fingers and reach the interlaced fingers up toward the sky with the elbows bent and with your shoulder blades hugging in toward each other. Draw over to one side and back to the center. Draw your elbows over to the opposite side and back to center. One more time, just see if you can keep working your feet rather than kind of dumping all the weight of your pelvis onto your feet. See if your feet can be more active, really hugging in. So it's almost like you're trying to elevate your pelvis just slightly, not dump all the weight to the feet. Release your hands down, come to a seated position. And in your seated position, have your right knee bent, have your left foot to the outer right knee, and just pause here. And for some of us, this doesn't work because the left hip lifts so high, so the bottom leg might be straight for some of us. So just kind of figure out how you can modify in a way that the pose works really well for you. So, whatever pose you're in, whatever version of the pose you're in, see in this no hands way if you can hug the lifted left knee in toward your right ribs more without letting the left hip leave the earth. Extend your right arm up to the sky. Now, with your right arm lifted, with your left hand on the mat behind you, take your left hand a little bit further back. So you've got so much room to move here. Might be a slightly different version than you're used to, but with your hand way back, that gives you so much room that maybe you can even take your right hand down to your left foot and you press your hand into the foot, and that just reminds the right foot to become really active. So you're pressing the foot very firmly. Release yourself out of the twist, but see about having the knees stacked right over each other. And again, for some of us, this is not so healthy for our hip and knees, so you can straighten the bottom leg if you wish. So as you come to whatever pose works for you, it can be knees stacked with both legs bent or the bottom leg straight. Just draw forward slightly. And if your leg is straight, you may want to use a strap to extend the spine forward. So have the back of the leg very firmly planted. Draw your heart forward and very slowly lift yourself up. One attention to detail that I didn't get, I find that so many of us just collapse this lifted leg so the ankle just kind of hangs out here. You want that ankle bone to have just a little clearance between your mat, above your mat. So let's try that on the other side. Press your right foot to the outer left knee and come to just a version of the twist that works nicely for you. Again, you can choose on this side what works best for you. Take your right hand just a little bit further back so that you get this opportunity to open the chest nicely. From here, reach your left arm up. We've done this work on the pelvis and the shoulders today. That gives us so much length in these twists as we work this area right between the shoulders and the pelvis. Take your left hand down to your foot if possible, or to the outer knee. And if it's to your hand is to the foot, see how you can engage your leg more. You work the foot, the base of the toes, right into the hand. And that strong engagement of the leg just allows your left ribs to just to get more engaged, more full into the action of the twist. And now come out of the twist. And now let's go back to that ankle bone action that we were talking about. So the lifted right leg, again, you want to make sure that the baby toe side of the foot is working so hard that the ankle bone has got some clearance from the mat. As you stack your knees, sit tall first and see if you can get your right sit bone to plant itself and the baby toe side of the foot to work nicely. Place your hands forward if possible and just draw forward. And you'll feel just one side of the pelvis feels like it's not exactly planted, perhaps if you've gone too far forward. So use the strength of your arms to just keep that pelvic stability that we've worked on. Keep the sit bones planted nicely. And as you're ready, just lift yourself up and come to lie down again. And as you lie down, we'll do that same action that we were doing before when we were standing with the elbows pressing against the ribs. You'll just take your hands just a little bit wider away from each other. So let's do it. Lie on your back. And as you lie on your back, press your elbows in toward your ribs with your palms facing each other. Now turn your palms so that the palms face toward your face and your thumbs reach away from your face. It's the same action we were doing when we were standing. So first, just draw your thumbs down toward the earth and just notice how you get this nice fullness to the upper chest as you do this. Pull your hands in toward each other. Now, one thing I've noticed is that as my hands go wider apart from each other, I just so get this hyper, lordotic curve, like a really big lift away from the mat of my lumbar spine. So see instead If you can bring your low ribs a little bit closer to the mat as you take your hands wider apart. So start with your palms facing your face. Hug your elbows in. Reach your hands further away from each other. Thumbs down. Get this nice fullness. And again, as the thumbs come down, notice how your low ribs want to float up more. But see if you can engage. See if you can bring that 12 o'clock position of the pelvis back so you've got this nice engagement. We'll do that one more time here with the palms facing toward your face, the fingers lifting up. Hug the elbows in and reach the hands, the thumbs toward the floor. Hands are moving apart from one another. There you go. Now just let the backs of the hands rest on the floor with our feet lifted up. Now take your hands a little bit more like in T position, but with a bend to the elbow in the T position, so you still can maintain a nice hugging in of the shoulders. Now, just as if the legs are like a metronome, a pendulum, with your knees bent, just go from one side, oh so slowly. Like this is not 4/4 time. You are going really slow. And just go slowly one side to the other. And as you do, just kind of notice how you can get a nice engagement or nice stimulation actually to one side of the pelvis and the other side. Muscles in the pelvis. As you put a little bit more weight to them, they become just a little bit more inspired as you go side to side, but oh so slowly. Just move your legs slowly, one more round to one side and to the other side. Back to center. Now, with your knees bent just a little bit more, so your shins are approximately parallel to the mat. Draw your knees over to your right side and let your right hand just kind of rest on your left leg as you continue to reach your left arm out to the side and just pause there. So, in this twist, we're just going to let the legs kind of surrender to the earth. So, we just check into the breath. And the longer you stay here, maybe you can notice how your right side ribs could use just a little bit more inspiration, maybe a little bit more lift. So see if you can kind of route your breath to expand the right side ribs. Keeping that inspiration on the right side ribs, pull your right knee in to lift it toward the left knee. And this, as if the right leg is just carrying the left leg up, come back to center and pause here. with the shins parallel, draw over to the opposite side. And take your left hand to the outer right knee. And at first, just allow yourself to just kind of settle into this twist. And that settling in is your opportunity to focus your breath. And the focus of the breath is to the expansion of the sides of the body, especially the left side of the body. Just route your breath to have this feeling that your ribs are moving against your skin and your skin moves against your clothing, and you just feel a real fullness start to turn on just through the breath. Take your left hand off your knee so that your bottom knee, your left knee, can lift up to engage. Your left ribs are engaged just through all the action of the breath. And with strong bottom leg there, really lift up and release down. So pause here for a moment with your elbows alongside your ribs, with your palms facing your face like we've done. Reach your palms away from each other and just let the backside of the hands draw toward the earth as you lift your pelvis away from the earth. Keep this engagement in the arms to get nice lift of the pelvis. Now slowly take your pelvis down to the mat. Extend your feet. Your arms are already extended and your shoulders should be nicely positioned for fullness of the upper chest in your Shavasana. The yoga practice reminds us that the teacher that we truly need to appreciate every practice is ourselves. This is the time during Shavasana of gratitude, of appreciation, of recognition, of assimilation. This is the time that you allow that inner teacher to shine. Let your breath be a way to sort of encapsulate this knowledge of the self, to bring greater attention to the self. Let your breath be that aspect of you that helps your concentration, your focus. Through that, it just gives us such great confidence, stability, and the stability brings freedom. Continue to enjoy this resting time in Shavasana. Namaste.